All right. Well, with that, we are going to get started. And again, welcome to our second in our four-part series of employer webinars this year. It is Candidate Experience is your number one customer. And so with me today, I have three colleagues that are going to help share this story and give you some wonderful information. So if I can introduce them first off, for those of you that do not know me, my name is Gail Cruikshank, and I am the Talent Director at the Greater St. Cloud Development Corporation. And I'll introduce my team here.
Good afternoon. My name is Doreen Meyer, and I currently work at Anna Marie's Alliance, and I have a lot of HR experience with both big and small companies and nonprofits. So hopefully we'll be able to bring you some new information today. Thank you. And I'd like to introduce Sarah.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sarah Wisniewski. I'm the Public Relations Director at Brenning Transportation. I also have many years in human resources as well. And next up, we have Luke, our behind-the-scenes man.
Hello, everyone. I'm Luke with Data Marketing. I'm the one that was causing all the sound issues, apparently. So thank you for bearing with us as we get going here. And I will hand it back over to Gail, and we'll get started.
All right, as Luke switches over to the PowerPoint for our presentation, I want to let you know that after the presentation, we will be emailing out to you the presentation itself, as well as a short survey, because we really want to hear your feedback. As the webinar world is a little bit new to us, we want to make sure that we're delivering high quality presentations that are helping you in your workforce and your business. So a little bit about overview and why we are here today and what we're going to cover for you. We really want to just touch on a little bit of the state of the employment market. Also the concept, what is candidate experience? It's a buzzword throughout the whole community and really regionally, and what does it really mean? And we're going to help clarify that a little bit and really share with you how encompassing that can be. And then really the opportunity, and what opportunity do you have to enhance this candidate experience within your company, and how is that going to impact your business and your bottom line? And then also we're going to share some eye-opening statistics that are really quite amazing. As we were pulling together this presentation, it was just eye-opening to see some of this information that's out there, both from what the candidate perceives as well as what our employers say. So what are we going to cover today? Why is this such a growing topic of concern? And what does it really mean, that candidate experience? We're also going to give you a variety of tips and education and experience from our employers here in the room. You know, what do they have to share that will help you with your candidate experience? And as with anything that is successful, communication is key, and we're going to show you how that communication process is absolutely essential when you are communicating with your candidates from start through their employment with your company. Also, hiring and onboarding. Many people feel that, okay, once that candidate said yes, the candidate experience is done, and that's absolutely not true. And then at the end, I'm going to have you do a little self-reflection as to what does your company experience look like? And then we'll open it up to questions and answers that you can chat in the chat box anytime throughout the presentation. Any questions you might have, know that we will keep the questions to the end just to make sure that we get through all of this great content that we have for you today. If there are any questions that come up after the presentation that you weren't able to ask or get answered, note that we will email you directly following the presentation with any follow-up. So as we move on, you know, why is that candidate experience so important? You know, it used to be that all of the hiring used to be all about employers. The employers could do what they wanted. They could post a simple ad. They could share their opening with a colleague, you know, and they would have numerous candidates to pick from. Well, that's not the case anymore. And it's really, the tide has turned, and now it is really a candidate-driven environment, and to the point of it's 90% all about the candidate. So you need to make sure that your experience that you're providing to those candidates are matching up, and you're really attracting them and explaining to them why should they work for you and why are you that employer of choice. You know, the candidate experience is now far more important than ever. And so with that, we are going to have a little fun with you today. So I'm going to turn it over to Luke, who's going to introduce you to a little poll that we're going to have you take. So Luke.
Thanks, Gail. All right, so like Gail mentioned, we've got a quick poll that we're just looking to engage the attendees with. I'm going to launch it. It'll pop up automatically right in front of your eyes, hopefully, as long as everything works. Look at that, it did work. So go ahead and fill out your answers, select all that apply, and we want to hear from you, and then we'll discuss the answers as they come in. So we'll give it about 10 or 20 seconds here for everyone to answer. This is where I was supposed to play the music, Gail, right? Do, 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 do. You don't want me to do that. Okay, so we're already starting to see some of the answers come in here. And at this point, I'm going to hand it back over to Gail and have her talk about what some of the answers are and just get feedback from everybody. And once again, just as a reminder, if you have questions that come up, like Gail mentioned, feel free to use the question feature, and we will address those at the end.
Thanks, Luke. And as I think we must have some pretty smart people on the call today, because they are obviously feeling that all of these elements that we shared with the poll are truly a part of that candidate experience. And there's even more than this. We weren't able to list all of the elements that come into play, and that's where my colleagues are going to help share some of that information today. And so it really starts you to think about all of the things that do impact that candidate experience. And just to jump ahead, as we continue to move forward here, as far as what, if I had to give you a definition to utilize today as far as that candidate experience, it is really the attitude and behaviors of individuals who aspire to work for a company based on their experience with that company. And every interaction that your company embarks on with the candidate is part of that candidate experience. So, reading the job posting, and even before that, if they have any interaction with anybody, or even as a customer, you might have come into play with an employer, and what is your perception of that company? As they visit your website, is your career link or your career options on the bottom, buried in the bottom of your webpage? It should be at the very top. It should be the thing you are broadcasting to your customer. As a candidate talks to an employer at any level, it could be the hiring manager, it could be an associate, it could be the CEO. Anybody is an ambassador to your company that is helping shed that story of what your environment is like. The whole application and interview process, we're going to dive deeper into that in just a minute or two. There are a lot of things to think about there. Communication after the interview. What are you doing to ensure that you have quality conversation and communication and updates to your candidates, literally from start to finish? And lastly, your social media presence. What message are you sharing? Are you that desired company to work for? Because of what message you are sharing with your public, both your customers and your potential candidates. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Doreen to take the mic and talk a little bit more about that candidate experience.
Thank you, Gail. So the next slide talks about how is your candidate experience. A candidate's experience in your recruitment process directly impacts their perception of the value your company places on its people. So if you think of your own website and your access and the feeling and process that people go through, it's a time to really evaluate how does it make you feel. Although 78% of employers feel good about how they set expectations for candidates and communicate throughout the hiring process, only 47% of candidates feel the same way. So there's really a disconnect between what the actual feeling is going through the process and what employers think the experience is like. We really believe that looking at the candidate experience is critical to your success in hiring, and to really be thinking about all the pieces that come together. One of the things that I've done whenever I've applied for a job is if there's other locations or stores that I can visit, I've gone in and I've acted as a customer. I've purchased product there, I've talked to the employees, and I make a judgment about the company based on how I'm treated. And I also contact, if I call in and I leave a message for someone, do they get back to me ever, or does it kind of go in the black hole? So all of these kinds of things can impact someone's perception of you. Some employers do have lots of candidates for a position. However, most employers do struggle with getting adequate candidates, at least for a few of their positions. And so with those positions especially, it's critical that you don't lose anyone because of that candidate experience. So we're going to talk about some tips to improve that candidate experience through process improvement, communication, and technology. First of all, the process. How does the candidate feel after going through your recruitment process? Do you keep the process simple and flowing, or is it long and exhausting? If you personally were seeking a job, what would you want that experience to look like, and how would you want to feel at the end of the process? Just starting at the beginning, what is the experience like when someone goes to your career page? Is it easy to find the list of posted jobs? Is it easy to find the application? Does your career page reflect your brand? Is your mission and your values listed there so people know right away what's important to you? If you look at the filling out the application, many times you will be doing that online in today's technical world. It's important that the information you collect is necessary. And one of the things that I've experienced as a job seeker is that sometimes the process itself is really a long and cumbersome process. And I often think, I wonder how many people drop out before they even get to the 10-minute mark, because some of the information seems that it's not necessary so early in the process. Most people would prefer a process that only takes 5 or 10 minutes to collect the initial information. One idea that I've used effectively is to make that first collection of information much more simple and just get the information I really need from the candidate. And then when they are invited, if they are invited to an interview, at that point, I will ask them to go online and fill out additional application information, which might take 15 or 20 minutes, but at that point they're more engaged because they know that they're going to have an opportunity to interview with us. So I would really take a close look at that application process. What's the time frame? What's the least amount of information you can collect and still have the information you need to screen your candidates? After the candidate submits their application, what is the communication that the candidate receives from your company? If you have an automated system, hopefully you have it set up that they will automatically at least receive a response saying, we have successfully received your application. One additional thing, if you don't currently have in that process, would be helpful is to add information about what the basic process is going to look like at your company. For example, if you know that it's going to take 3 weeks before anyone's selected for a phone screen or an interview, it would be helpful to indicate that information in the response. Candidates who are looking for a job are often anxious to hear back, particularly those who are currently not employed. If you're not working and you're looking actively for a position, often those people are waiting every day to just hear something back one way or another. So I guess it's important to put yourself in that candidate spot and think about what would you feel like if you had to wait 4 weeks with no communication. Often good candidates will now have moved on to other positions feeling like they're probably not going to be considered. If you are delaying the process longer than you anticipated, it's also good to just send out a mass notification to the candidates, letting them know that our process has been delayed. This is what we anticipate the process to be like in the future, what the next steps will be. Sarah's going to talk about the importance of communication a bit more, and so I'll stop with that on communication. Some of the newer technology that's available allows candidates to upload their resume and pre-fills out much of the application. If your software can do this, this really simplifies the process for the candidate. One of the things I personally experienced in applying for jobs is that the uploading of the resume has at times been difficult, where you're using the right software in the process, but it doesn't work properly. And one of the suggestions I would have is to always, again, consider what it's like to be the candidate. Maybe have a helpful phone number available if somebody's having difficulty with that step in the process, so they don't get frustrated and drop out of the process. Also, if when screening the candidates, you've determined that someone just doesn't fit what you're looking for, the earlier you can get back to them, the more positive that experience is for them, because at least they know you took a look at it and you determined that they weren't the right fit, and then they can move on to the other positions for which they are pursuing. Next, we're going to move on to the interview process. With the interview process, it's important to just follow some important steps of making the candidate feel welcome, being prepared, giving them your attention. One of the things I guess I would say that's probably the most important is if you do have a star candidate, try to make a job offer as soon as you possibly can, given your own process. If a candidate receives an offer right away, like within 24 hours, often they will take that position rather than continue interviewing with other companies. So that is something that I would suggest that you consider doing. And then we'll just move to the next slide. The applicant experience answers these questions. There's a number of questions listed below, and these questions, like why would I want to work here? Hopefully, when you go through your candidate experience by filling out an application on your own website, you'll notice what looks good, what works well, what doesn't. It is really important to ask yourself how these questions pertain to your organization. And it's important to give your candidate a real picture of what the job is like. You don't want to be sugarcoating that this job is, all, sitting in the office and meetings and those kinds of things, when in fact there might be a lot of physical effort that's required, or some things that other people might find as less attractive. If you tell them the truth, then when they get on the job and it's exactly what you said, they're going to be happy with what they signed up for. If you don't give them the actual information that would lead them to understand the job fully, they may be really disappointed. So just reading through these questions, I'm going to leave that to you to just do that on your own, but I would suggest you just write down some answers, ask other people about what their experience was, that maybe some of your new hires, and then just make sure that you're being very clear and consistent in all of the communications. Overall, it ends up being what your brand is, and the candidate experience is going to reflect a combination of all that information put together. I'm going to turn it over now to Sarah to give you a real-world example of a candidate experience.
Thanks, Doreen. Well, candidates tell us that we have a very unique environment at Brenning Transportation, and so we have, over the years, discovered that we really like to showcase that. So we really schedule all of our interviews around our team engagement or exercise time, so candidates can actually see our true environment. You want to make sure that the candidate is aware of what type of environment they would actually be working in, so you don't want to pretend to be something other than you're not. We have a very open and inviting environment. People tell us that we give them the VIP treatment. We're very excited that they are giving us the time and the opportunity to interview them, because that is huge for them to do that. We also pay attention to how the candidates are before the interview, to see if they're observing, if they're smiling, if they're talking with people on the front desk. Are they what some would call Minnesota nice? Because that really showcases what kind of character they are. We try to keep it also very relaxed. They're very nervous coming into a new environment, so we try to do what we can to make them comfortable. Once we actually start the interview, we let them know that they're interviewing us just as much as we're interviewing them, because we want to make sure not only are they a good fit for us, but that we're also a good fit for them, because it's really a partnership about it all. Next slide is communication, and we keep going back to communication because it really is key. Obviously, all job applicants are human. You want to make sure that you respect them and respect their time. Really listen to what they're saying. You can get a lot of information from those between the lines. Your company story, how transparent are you? Just as an example, we have our whole company story on our website. We have books about our company in our office and our entryway. We discuss our company story in the interview, and it's continued on even once the candidate is hired. Check out your job posting, see if they're accurate. Are there clear expectations? Are they simple? Are they understandable and not full of jargon? Again, kind of going back to what Doreen was talking about, the application process. With technology nowadays, you want to make sure that it's easy and user-friendly, and that it's a fillable format, that they can do it all online. Your employees and the on-site atmosphere are really representing the company, good, bad, and otherwise. So make sure that you take note of how they're representing. What's the tidiness and cleanliness of your office? It seems so simple, but it really shows that you care and if you're organized. Is your office dull and dreary, or is it bright and cheery? Because that will really showcase what type of environment they are exposing themselves to. Again, back to candidate communication and follow-up. Really prepare them ahead of time. It goes back to respect and letting them know what they should be expecting when they come in. Timely communication, again, through the whole process. Follow through is definitely key. Again, it shows that you respect them. Even if you're still waiting to hear back for more information, let them know so they're not left in the dark, because no one likes to be left in the dark. The candidate relationship after the interview process. You know, although that this candidate might not work out for this particular job, you want to stay in contact with them if they could possibly be a right fit in the future, because you never know what the future would hold. Always ask for feedback. That will definitely help the interview process. It will help the candidate. It will also help your overall experience and help you and your company be better. 81% of job seekers say continuously communication status updates would help them greatly improve the overall experience and the desire to work for the employer. So that kind of stuff will help them say yes. It definitely speaks volumes. Next, Luke is going to take it away.
All right. So I'm talking about technology and really all the different tools that are available. They have the guy who screws up the technology piece talk about technology like he's some kind of expert or something now. Sorry for the side note there, but this is such a key piece of it. I mean, a lot of what we've been talking about today has so much to do with communication. Well, we live in a high-tech, high-touch world, right? And where responsiveness, it's a now economy, as many people call it. And so getting back to people quickly is so important, and it's expected. It's not in that it's important now. It is part of what people expect. And So, and finding different ways to communicate with them, depending on who your audience is very key too. But just getting into back into that timeliness and responsiveness piece of it, so important. And you saw some stats on just how quickly people are to drop off and find the next great thing for them. This economy is tight, and it's I mean, gone are the days of, you wait as long as you want because the employer's in the driver's seat. You need to act quickly, and you need to act now when it comes to acquiring that talent, which is so important. Tracking the communication history, it's important for many reasons. One of the ways that we find it at data marketing to be very important, and for us is to identify, do we make any promises along the way? If it's somebody like we talk about, is we're often interviewing just as much as, or they're often interviewing us just as much as we're interviewing them. And so it's important that if they're asking us questions, we're logging those answers and being able to go back to them later on in order to deliver on our promises that we made, and vice versa there. And then, of course, finding the different ways, whether it's email, texting, there's just quick phone calls. That's the kind of communication it takes in order to increase those response rates with candidates. A lot of the times, I mean, a lot of the younger generation, call it 18 to, I don't know, let's just say 25, view email as something that's passé, and they don't check it as often as 25 plus. It's just not in a world that they've been in. They check it every 72 hours or so instead of every day, like many of the 25 or older candidates might. So just be aware of who you're hiring, who is that candidate, and treat them like a human. I think that's such a it can't be overstated. And really you've got to, of course, if you're getting into an email like campaign, you've got to be cautious of allowing people to opt out and get out of that application or that process that you have. So automation is key, but don't forget the fact that all this technology that exists out there, whether it's an applicant tracking system, which many of you might use, if you're not aware of, it simply allows you to do some of the things like I described, like track their communication history instead of tracking it on a spreadsheet or something like that. But never forget that you need to treat these people like humans. And so that is a very key piece. Sure.
Well, and before we turn it back to Sarah, I wanted to just add one thing. I know a lot of companies will say, I don't have the funding to be able to have an automated tracking system. I can't have all the bells and whistles. There are so many versions. You can start small. You don't have to go to the top of the line from the start. So as we've talked about, it is just find what fits your company and your company size. But we all know that we're forced to do more with less resources and less time. And so we need to be efficient at what we do. And this is one of the ways that you can really score in the candidate's eyes and also make your life a lot easier. So back to Sarah.
Awesome, thank you. So now you found the perfect candidate, you hired them, now what? Well, our company is kind of a little bit smaller, so human resources really handles it all, from the recruiting to the hiring manager handoff. We don't really have that. However, advice is make it easy and a very slow handoff. You don't want to just cut the cord, so to speak. You don't ever want the candidate to feel like they're left alone on a deserted island. You want to make sure that the process is followed through on and communicated along the way. We talked a lot about onboarding and the process. So if you're able to, do some of that paperwork or onboarding prior to the start date. That way they can hit the ground running. Personal attention to details and questions. Really listen to the candidate and find out what they're looking for. Again, listening is definitely key. It's really important to have the candidate to have their own home, their own space to make theirs, to really personalize it. We even have a little welcome gift that we put out for team members when they first start. That way they feel like they're really welcomed and it's their home during the day. Constant communication. At our company, we do weekly roundups with the trainer, the mentor, and the leader to make sure that the communication is open with a new team member, to make sure that they're getting everything that they're looking for, and to find out what else we can do to improve. For mentorship, we have a mentorship program where all new team members are paired with a mentor so that they have a person to go to for questions. Again, never left stranded or alone, someone that is their go-to contact person. And ongoing training, that is so very important. We do cross-training actually in all departments at our company. We also have the history and culture training. Training really never stops from the time that they start to, forever. And career planning, ask them, what do they want to do when they grow up? Where do they see themselves going? What do they need to get there? We offer guiding and coaching and mentoring as long as the team member is willing to put in the work. Again, they have to do the work to get there, and we'll help them grow and be the best person that they can be and be successful, because that's what it's all about. Next, we'll go back to Gail.
And as you can see, some of the comments that Sarah brought up lead right into that retention, and that'll be an upcoming webinar that we will be doing this fall. So again, heads up, if you want to get a jump start, those are all available for you to register for as well on our website. But at this point, we talked about some staggering statistics, and we're not going to read through all of these, but there are a few that I really feel that have to be identified and have to be highlighted here today. So, first off, 78% of employers feel that they have a good candidate experience. However, only 47% of the candidates feel the same way. So that's half. So you might think of it as an employer, you have a pretty darn good program and process, but have you asked your candidates if they agree with you? Are you providing everything they are seeking? It might be different than what you might have initially thought. So another one that I think is key is 56% of the candidates can tell what it would be like to work at your company based on your careers website. So have you taken a look at your careers website? I know a lot of us feel like we work day in and day out, we see it every day, we have it pulled up on our screen, but what is it really like as a fresh face coming to that screen? Have you encouraged maybe a friend or a colleague to go look at your careers page as a brand new set of eyes? Is it enticing? Is it welcoming? Is it someplace that you want to work? So only 1 out of 3 employers have actually completed their own applicant experience. And I would challenge each and every one of you today to go apply to a job at your company. If you have not done that lately, please do that. And I think it might provide some eye-opening aha moments to you to really say, am I really a welcoming experience to encounter? The next one is something that really needs to change, and something that's near and dear to my heart as I talk to a lot of candidates as they are trying to find new opportunities. 75% of candidates never hear back from a company after sending in an application. Now that's just simply not acceptable. I know you're busy, I get that. I lived in that world. All of these folks in our room are employers today. I know time element is very tough to manage, but you owe them that. Even if it's a simple automated response, they need to hear what's going on. They need to at least know either they're in or they're out as a potential candidate. So, and then Doreen alluded to this earlier, but 60% of candidates abandon job applications if it takes too long. Again, I know you want to be complete, you want to be thorough right out of the chute, but to Doreen's point, can you ask just a very few simple questions and that allows you a chance to visit with them and find out could they be a fit, then follow up with your additional questions to filter them out if they can be a potential candidate. 60% have gone for interviews and never heard back. If they spent an hour with you or 2 hours, whatever the case might be, they are certainly, exploring you as a company, and you get a chance to explore them, but I think you at least owe them some sort of response back, even if you're not a right fit right now. So The other things that I wanted to highlight, it really does impact your business and your bottom line. 53% feel speaking to their future manager during their process is key to determining if they're a good fit. I know a lot of you utilize your human resource executives to do that search feature, to do even that hiring feature, but you need to have them speak to who that they are going to be working with. That hiring manager, they need to understand what that environment's like. As we all know, the right candidate is not maybe so much about their skill set, but about the fit within the organization. Well, how do you know if they fit within the organization if you don't have a meet with their hiring manager that they would report to? Only 17% of job seekers said they were notified that they weren't selected for a job. So that has to change as well. Why would you want to leave somebody hanging out there? Because again, they're going to have a negative impact, which is going to impact your sales, your brand throughout the community. 42% of disgruntled candidates will not apply for a position again at your company. And that's alarming. We know how tight our job market is. We want people to reapply down the road. If they're not a good fit for now, they might be a great fit for later. And then 27% will actively discourage others from applying to your organization that if you had treated them poorly. So, and others will even ask their friends to boycott buying product from you. So that's something that really does impact your true bottom line. And so it's not all just about finding the right candidate, but they're also impacting your sales. And so that's the whole message that we want to relay today, as far as it goes beyond just hiring a candidate. It goes beyond how that impacts your sales and your growth of your company's product. So Luke, anything you want to add on any statistics? I kind of let it be. We will keep moving forward. I know we got started a few minutes late, but I want to put some conclusions to this experience and then open up questions, as I'm sure we've had some come in from all of you. So in conclusion, again, I don't want to inundate you with stats, but I think it helps paint the picture of how incredibly important this candidate experience is. Although 82% of employers think that there is little to no negative impact, 69% of the candidates say they are less likely to buy from companies who have provided a negative experience. So again, it is important, and it is something that we definitely need to take attention to. And again, the key is finding the level and the sources that will work best for you and your company. They do share their experiences with others, positive and negative. So just imagine if I have a great candidate experience, if I go and apply at Brenny Transportation, I'm going to tell the world that that's a great place I want to work at. I'm also going to say, if somebody needs some, of their expertise in what they do in hauling, equipment and anything like that, I'm going to say, go call Brenny. So I'm helping their business as well as promoting their company. It's just because I had a great experience there when I interviewed. And really, in closing to this, it's time for us as employers need to change. We need to start investing in providing the candidate experience that really sets us apart and really makes us that employer of choice. So with that, I want to just think about to yourself, if you want to advance to the next slide, how does your company stack up? Are you that employer of choice? Are you, providing that experience that is a good experience for your candidates, so then they can therefore go out and promote you as an organization? Are you engaging your employees to be that cheerleader for you? Like somebody mentioned earlier on today during our presentation, good, bad, or indifferent, your employees are representing your brand. So are they representing it in a way that you want them to? So take a couple minutes, reflect on this after today, as far as what is your experience like. And on the last slide, we just have a couple of recommendations that I would strongly suggest that you think about. And we have highlighted today, enhancing your employer brand. Again, what do you look like on the web? What do you look like out in the community? What is your brand? That's what gets people excited. Improve your communication processes. I think we all know that we all can improve them in a variety of different avenues and ways through the process. So again, how does your whole process look from start to finish? and treat all candidates as your #1 customer, whether you hire them or not. They are still customers in our environment and in our region, and so you want them to be out there promoting you as well, even if they're not the employee for you. So it's very wide-reaching. Create that best possible experience so you are that candidate or you are that employer of choice. So with that, I want to open up for the questions that we have gotten, and I think we can put the video camera back on if you guys want to join me back up here. So just a variety of us will answer the questions that have come in and provide you some last-minute takeaways to go forward. So where do you want to start, Luke? Okay. Doreen, the first question, it looks like it's for you. So elaborate a little bit more on what you include on the initial application so the process can take less time.
Well, thank you for the question. What we have done initially is not going into as much detail with all of the job-related information, certainly asking some questions about their experience working and things, but not necessarily having them list every position. One of the things, so I'd probably say the primary thing is that when we get applications off of Indeed, rather than forcing them to go through the applicant tracking system, we've started to accept those applications and screen from them. And that has really helped us because we set it up one way where we made everyone go through the applicant tracking, and we only got like 3 applications. Then we opened it up where they just had to submit their resume, and then we had, you know, it was probably 20 applications. And yes, it means a little bit more time in screening through those candidates, but if you're having trouble getting enough candidates, you'd much rather have candidates to look at their information, and then if you bring them in for an interview, you can have them go online and fill out the full application process. But I would say, Marlene, if there might be a few key questions that you want to ask as it relates to your mission, as it relates to their past work experience, to even determine if they meet the minimum qualifications, if it's not an entry-level position. Thank you.
Anything you want to add, Sarah?
No, I think she covered it very well.
Okay. Automation, either one of you want to respond to, and I know this is relating to very large organization. How do they make it personal? Because it is so automated due to their size. So again, there is that happy balance. And I don't know if either of you have any initial feedback to share with Nicholas in this regard.
I think the key is, again, like Gail said, to find the balance between the two, because yes, automation is very helpful, but you still don't want to lose that human touch. So still add in the human factor, you know, where it's able. Maybe instead of emailing back and forth, to try calling them on the phone, having a phone interview, that type of stuff I think could definitely help. You know, you're still relying on technology, but you're still also treating them like a human being.
Okay. And on to the next question from Angie. I know you're prioritizing, I think if I'm reading this right, you know, for sure, immediately getting back to your local candidates, but maybe the ones that are a little bit outlying, maybe not quite as timely. Hopefully I'm saying that right, Angie, just as far as a prioritization. And I think that's certainly a prioritization you can think about. The thing that I want to add to that is we're also trying to attract people to the region. And so there might be people that are seeing the St. Cloud region as the perfect place to live, work, and engage. And so they're kind of putting out their feelers. As we are hearing now more than ever, a job applicant will first look at the community before they even think about what job they're going to do once they arrive in that community. So communities are critical, and that is really the driving force, even ahead of job in some cases. So just keep that in mind. But to Angie's point, come up with a priority that works for you. You know, something that will get you the response that you owe those candidates, but also that works within your own timeline. I know many human resource folks wear a lot of hats within their organization. It is not somebody that can focus solely on recruitment many times. So again, find what's comfortable for you and really make that work. Just again, ensuring that you're getting back to each and every candidate, however that timeline looks. Doreen.
Angie, I think on that question, what I would definitely agree with is some positions are positions that people will move for and others aren't. If I'm hiring for a part-time 20-hour-a-week position that's going to pay, you know, $14 per hour, my guess is someone isn't going to relocate from Colorado to Minnesota. Typically, if they want to relocate to Minnesota, they will put in their cover letter, you know, I'm looking to relocate to Minnesota, this is my home, or that type of thing. But what I like to look at is if they have any Minnesota connections on their resume, because if they do, then I might send them an email back and say, you know, this position is in Minnesota. When are you planning to relocate here? Something like that, because if they didn't recognize that it was in Minnesota, sometimes people just apply to a lot of jobs. Now, on the other hand, if it's a high-level position, we've relocated in the companies I've worked with, we've relocated a number of people for high-level positions like store manager or higher who have been very successful. And so if they have really good qualifications and things like that, I will always start with phone screening. And actually, more recently, I switched to, I will phone screen them, I will have a manager phone screen them, I will check their references, and then I will bring them in just to save on costs, because I had a couple of situations where we brought somebody in and it was too early and we could have saved the cost of the plane trip if we had checked a little further with references. So just a few ideas on that from me.
Sarah, anything else you'd like to add?
I think Doreen covered it all. I guess I don't think I would, you know, say no to candidates unless, like Doreen said, it's a position where it requires them and they're not willing to move. Always keep that door open, because you just never know. Maybe they really like your company and they decide they want to relocate. So I always try to keep an open eye out there, because you just never know what the circumstance may change.
Did we get through all the questions? Okay. One thing that I want to highlight before we sign off today, or a couple of things actually. First off, I want to thank Luke and Doreen and Sarah for doing this today. Again, it is so helpful to bring employers alongside of me to present this information. They have a lot of time in the workplace, variety of employers, and again, a lot of things to share. Note that our contact information is on the last slide, so you certainly can reach out to any four of us with questions, with comments, with additional things that you want to share. Most of what I share is what I learned from each of you as an employer. So if there are additional tidbits, helpful hints, anything, please feel free to share that with me, because it just makes me more effective as I am out helping employers solve some of our recruiting and retention challenges. And the other thing I want to leave you with today is, when we were talking about candidates and potentially relocation and things like that, I hear from a number of employers that they have a lot of material that can share why is it great to work at your company. But they don't have a lot of information to share about why is the St. Cloud region such a wonderful place to live, work, and engage. And to that, if you are not familiar with our community portal, greaterstcloud.com, simply check that out and utilize that. If you are emailing information out to candidates that would require relocation, this is the perfect opportunity to really give a snapshot of what our St. Cloud region is all about. It talks about everything from the schools that are here, the hospitals, the healthcare that's here, the environment, what is it like downtown, the nightlife, everything. And so feel free to utilize that resource. That is why we created it. It was created for the community. And it provides you just a number of links and connections to really help tell the story about St. Cloud and the St. Cloud region as it is. So with that, we would like to close our webinar today. Thank you so much for spending your lunchtime with us. Hopefully you have found it helpful. Again, feel free to reach out to any of us with additional questions, and then watch for a copy of the PowerPoint as well as a few short questions that we would love to hear your feedback on that will be coming out to you later on today. And lastly, if you do know of someone that wanted to partake in the webinar that schedule did not allow, I know there's lots of things going on today, the webinar will be posted on our webinar page on our website within the next couple of days. And so, again, you can certainly direct people there if you think this would be helpful information for others to share. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Luke.
All right. Well, there's still about a couple of you still on here. Real quick, just wanted to add on to what Gail had just said. There's going to be a poll right after this, a survey. So when when the webinar ends, you'll be asked to just fill out a few questions. I think there's 4, maybe 5 questions. It'll be extremely helpful for us. So please do take some time. You've got an extra 3 minutes. We scheduled this until 1 o'clock. So I know you've got time, and it will take less than 3 minutes to fill out. So please do that. Thanks again for joining us. And like Gail said, we will have this recording with that intro section where I was totally screwing everything up cut out. Luckily, I will be able to edit that video to cut that out. So that never happened. But thank you all for joining, and hope you have a great rest of your day. Anything else from our team? All right, well, great. Thank you again.